Hello world. Educators, community members, artists across the country, supporters of art and creativity, welcome to the Diatribe Free Education Program. This is going to be an event that's broken down into 3 different segments: the past, the present, and the future. So let's start with a little bit of the past. For those that do not know, the Diatribe is a nonprofit organization that uses performing arts to empower young people to share their stories, raise awareness of social issues, and be active members in their community. This nonprofit organization was started in 2016, but we've been doing work for nearly 8 years in schools. Now, a lot of people have the question, how did the Diatribe begin? Well, it started with a ruffian group of 7 different creatives, and they had the idea to create the first ever blind, deaf-friendly art prize exhibit. For all the people who are like, what's an art prize exhibit? Well, you see, it is one of the largest art competitions in the world, one of the largest open art competitions. For us, the people who live in Grand Rapids, Michigan, it was an event with giant murals, larger than we've ever seen in our city, with giant constructed fire-breathing dragons and wooden pigs that stood as tall as cities. And when our creatives were sitting around, we were asking each other the question, if you were blind and or deaf, for both, how much of art prize would you never get to experience? So we decided to reach out to Michigan State University and a bunch of other partners, get a ton of Braille, get videos with closed captioning and sign language, and put together an entire exhibit rooted in words, something that people can experience even if they can't see or hear them, to show the power and the versatility of performing arts. What we did not expect was that Art Prize had a huge education component. We did these 2 poetry pop-up shows every single day, and lo and behold, the audience was full of young people. After Art Prize came to an end, we had some teachers come up to us and ask us, hey, have you ever thought about doing stuff like this in schools? To which we quickly responded, absolutely not. You see, none of us were people who thought that we could be youth leaders. None of us saw ourselves as mentors. We were people who hung out at bars a little bit too much. We are the people who normally close them down. We did nightlife events. That's the area that we lived. But one teacher in particular, a Mr. Rick Jackson, pleaded with us to come and start to work with his students at Kelloggsville Alternative High School. He said, some of my students aren't going to go to higher ed. He said, some of my students have these talents, but they don't know what they want to do with them. Can you just come in and share a little bit of your story and hopefully inspire them to maybe do the same? So we did. Afterwards, we left and we were like, again, I don't know if we are meant to be mentors to these young people, but what we didn't expect was that all of these students would then write us letters asking us to come back. And we did. We did every single week for years for nothing, except for the experience of sharing our story with them and having them share their stories with us. The first person that I'm going to call up is one of those teaching artists that's been here since not only that blind, deaf-friendly art prize exhibit, but since we were in those classrooms in the beginning. Since before it grew to what it is now, except rooted in the single fact that the thing that remains consistent is that we do it for our young people. We do it with a vision of something brighter and something bigger in the future, and creating something that our city has never seen. So everybody, wherever you're at, put your hands together for Foster, AKA Autopilot.
Thank you. Hello world, I am Foster, aka Autopilot. I've been here since the beginning, and to see what the Diatribe has grown into is more than a blessing. It's been life-changing. Just thinking about Rick Jackson and one of the first schools that we were in, Kelloggsville, and like one of the success stories that we had. It's crazy to think that this student was the quietest kid at school. Then they went on to become a leader to one of the most respected and listened to students. They are also now in college. And to know that I had such an impact, that we had such an impact, it gives you courage to continue to do this and to have hope for the next generation and future generations. And we just hope that it stays contagious and that our stories, the more we tell our truths, that they continue to affect the youth. And this is how we become the change that we want to see in the world. This first piece that I'm going to do is called Children's Book, and this is my truth. And while creative writing and poetry are therapeutic, it is not therapy, but it will definitely get you to start to have these conversations and to put you on a path towards the better version of yourself. And I think this is one of those pieces that did that for me, and I hope you enjoy it. No children's book has ever started off when Dad got sick that I can think of. Not the Berenstain Bears, Highlights for Children, Goosebumps, Tiki Tiki Timbo, No Saw Rimbo, Charibari Rucci, Pip Perry Pimbo, nothing. In fact, that book didn't even have a father, only the old man, but see, I had a father. He was strong and black. A husband, a brother, a cousin, a friend, a neighbor, provider, a protector, a hustler, a godfather, and a listener. He was also a diabetic, dealing with pills and strokes, defibrillators, heart attacks, depression, anger, sadness, cigarettes, low potassium, leg cramps, surgeries. He had a bad equilibrium like a broken seesaw, waterway issues and amputation, and here I am reflecting back on my kid-friendly education instead of how my life changed because my father's did. See, let me write my real version of my book on life. I can't draw but picture this as the beginning. I knew something was wrong when my mother answered the phone, tired as she always is, half sleep, half drowsy, but awake enough to make sure my sister and I didn't set the house on fire while cooking dinner. Hello, she said, followed by her legs giving out like kicking a chair from underneath you, slumping into her favorite napping place, breathless, in shock, whispering, "Oh God, no, I'm leaving now." It's hard to hear your mother say, "Help me up, son." No children's book ever started off when my father was misdiagnosed for cerebral palsy instead of stroke. No book ever started off when my father's cane turned into a walker and then into rolling circular legs. No book ever started off when my father could no longer take the stairs to see me perform. See, no book would tell you how many times I had to change my father's diaper or how many different ways I could show him how to tie a tie now. See, no book ever started off with, "Why is my father's face sagging?" And no book would tell you how I used Bazooka Joe bubblegum to strengthen my father's jaw muscles into a smile, into the words, "I love you, I'm okay," and the doctors, "Wow, you're improving rapidly." See, I don't know the book that would tell you that from 1497 Burton Road in Muskegon, Michigan, to 100 Michigan Street Northeast in Grand Rapids, Michigan, that 1,929 seconds is the time that it takes to stop dinner, get in a car, and race to Butterworth Hospital. See, 1929 is also significant because it was the start of my family's depression and economic hardships and how we battled to stay afloat. And no children's book will ever tell you how your needles will continue to tremble when you hold needle-like objects like a pen, your passion, your escape, and how you'll flash back to the last morphine shot you gave your father while holding his hands as he passed, looking into your eyes as the defibrillator constantly electrocutes his failing heart. Beep. No children's book ever shared such intimate, devastating memories like P, beep, T, beep, S, beep, D, beep. But I will always love and remember my father reading them no matter how much they didn't prepare me. Beep, I love you. Beep, goodbye. Beep, flatline.
Whew. Everybody, please make some noise wherever you're at one more time for Foster. What a way to kick off the free education program. Now, you'll see a lot of tying this program together in different ways. And a piece of Foster's story that is incredibly important is that he went to high school, he grew up in Muskegon, Michigan. With that being said, I would like to give a huge shout out to the Muskegon Community Foundation. Because of them, we are now expanding in new, vibrant ways that we hope are really going to be a beacon and a North Star to how we expand in the future. The Muskegon Community Foundation said, now, y'all, you might be incredibly talented, but you need to have way more artists who are rooted in the cities that you're expanding to. And when they said this, I said, I know just the person. Now, this artist isn't only incredibly talented, because the Diatribe, in my opinion, does have some of the most talented artists in their cities, but there is something extra special that makes this human being dynamic. You see, in the first day of our programming in Muskegon High School, this human being, Gemini the poet, decided to ask every single one of these students, what do you want to be? Now, there are some adults that ask questions like that out of curiosity, and then there are people like Gemini the poet who want to do way more than just ask a question. There's one young, dynamic black woman who said, I want to grow up and I want to be a lawyer. To which Gemini responded, yo, you know Miss So-and-so on 5th Street? Have you ever been to her office? Gemini snapped into action and wanted to start introducing these students to the people in their community they could see themselves in. And you see, that is an important piece that it gets us from the past and closer to our future, and is going to inspire us even more to be intentional with the ways that we grow. Everybody, please put your hands together for this human being, the one and the only Gemini, the poet.
Good afternoon. Shout out to the 231. I know y'all tuning in. To my Lady Reds, who are my mentee girls for the high school basketball. I'm Gemini the poet. When I was presented with this opportunity, I was speechless for a minute, but very appreciative, because I always looked at the Diatribe as my extended poetry family. To be able to do what I love and give back to our youth, the reason I do what I do, I'm just honored to have this privilege. So today, to introduce myself, I'll be doing a piece called I Am. As I begin, my only request is for you to listen, because it is then and only then can you truly envision how a Gemini who was brought up by such a strong foundation could be faced with so many afflictions, and how I turn that pain into my ambition. As I begin to write, my tears become intertwined with the ink on my notepad, as I struggle to openly speak on the good and the bad. Despite me knowing it's best to get this off my chest, and the only way that my soul will ever be at rest. At 39 years old, I still find myself sitting and reminiscing about how my life might be if I'd grown up feeling like my father loved me unconditionally. If only he would have invested time. If I would have gotten the love that I desire from him, could a peace of mind be an option? Instead, I have to cope and accept what I never got from him. It was never about money or things materialistic. I would have settled for honorable mention. I realize now that all I've ever craved was my father's attention. But those answers I seek, I'll never know. Because us both being stubborn, we never had that conversation before God called him home. So the answers will remain unknown. Who am I? I am that 19-year-old girl who hid her sexuality out of fear of rejection, who ran away to Texas, yes, 1,233 miles away from home, came out to my family over the phone, or should I say voicemail, and that was after they hadn't heard from me for 6 months. Hell, it's selfish once you think about it, but when you're scared, your logical thinking is clouded. But see, it's my mistakes that have allowed me to be great and gave me the ability to relate, to show the youth that they too can make it. It's never too late. Who am I? I'm that girl who strives to build up broken communities by speaking on my past transgressions, showing that despite what many may think, I too have many imperfections. I am the one who dreams about us going in a different direction, where the color of my skin doesn't equal instant rejection, nor is it met with instant aggression. I'm sorry, y'all, this is more than a poem. It's me subconsciously confessing about the things that leave me up at night, tossing and turning and stressing. But through it all, I still see God's blessings. He has shown me that the trials and tribulations were tough lessons that I had to go through. It was His way of making me valuable to our youth, showing them that they too can use their pain as fuel, and that the blueprint of your life is ultimately determined by you. It's to show them that they can make it in this world, even if they're not perfect. I mean, my mistakes and imperfections are what made me Gemini the poet. Thank you.
Wherever you are at, get a little bit louder for Gemini the poet, everybody. Woo! So next up, we inch closer to the present. As a lot of our parents tuning into this know, as a lot of the educators tuning into this know, nonprofit professionals tuning into this know, and everybody tuning into this knows, the now has been a task. As an organization that's rooted in intimacy, in performance, in radical vulnerability, the now was especially hard for us. All of our times in classes, we're teaching young people to share their stories. We're used to connecting with people, looking in their eyes, and building this rapport that lasts throughout the weeks of us being in the classroom. But what we needed to snap into was the fact that times have changed. And if you don't adapt, you become obsolete. The reason that we have been able to adapt so well is because we have the best director of education in the city of Grand Rapids, maybe even in the Midwest, right? This human being has put their foot into this program that they are about to show you all. If you know somebody who could use this program that they are about to introduce, please pass it along to them. But get ready to get schooled and catch some knowledge from our Director of Education, Rachel Gleason. Make some noise for Gleason, everybody.
Thank you, Fable, for that incredible introduction. And thank you all for joining us today to learn more about the Diatribe and what we've been up to lately. And I have the incredible honor to share with you all a quick look at our downloadable program that so many people came together to make possible. So what we came up with at the beginning of this pandemic, like Fable said, we were talking together and how we were going to pivot and how we were going to provide resource for teachers and also an outlet for young people. We know that teachers have poured all of themselves into their teaching year and year again, oftentimes being underpaid, and we really wanted to make life easier on them as they were being asked to have plans ready for distance learning, have plans ready for hybrid, have plans ready for in-person. So we wanted to create a program that really had everything included to take as much off of their plate as possible, while also creating and providing an outlet for young people to talk about their mental health during this pandemic. As adults ourselves, we've all seen and felt how this has impacted our mental health. So that's why this first downloadable program, the first of 5 to come, is Poetry-Empowered Mental Health and Wellness. So if you download this program, what you'll get is a zip file that includes several folders. So in this first slide here, you see the Before You Begin folder, the follow-up folder that has tons of extensions, the sessions folder, the student journals, which are interactive journals where students can write about responding to discussion questions, activities, and writing prompts, and video links and a virtual assembly. The Before You Begin folder has a unit overview where educators can take a look at what the whole session and course will look like. It's designed to be taught once a week over the course of 10 weeks. This allows students to kind of reflect on the prompts and write a rough draft before moving on to the next content. But really, teachers can teach this however they want. If they want to do it twice a week, that's also available. We just wanted to give as many options as possible. This Before You Begin folder also contains mental health and wellness resources. It was really important for us to provide these resources that can be shared with students both before and after the program. I had the distinct pleasure of being able to share this content with Sierra Hudson of Reclaim Counseling, and she was able to give feedback on the content to make sure it was culturally responsible and responsible in regard to mental health and wellness. And she also gave added resources to this document that includes specific lifelines and resources for Black teens, LGBTQ teens, and more. There's also in this Before You Begin folder some tips and advice on how to give feedback to poems. That can be one of the most intimidating parts, I think, about teaching poetry, is giving feedback and helping taking a student's draft that oftentimes is them just kind of pouring out their story. And that's what we often encourage young people to do when they're writing that rough draft, not to think of it as a poem, but to just get their story on paper. And these tips for editing will help teachers show students how they can take that rough draft and add imagery, add sensory language, and kind of take it more into a final draft stage. Then we see in the session folders themselves, each session folder, this is session 1, has the text of each poem that's being studied that week. It has the interactive student journals. It has the session PowerPoint, and it has the scope and sequence and the session 1 step-by-step and rationale. I also want to make sure that I shout out to all of the incredible teachers that helped create this content. Sean Duffy at Forest Hills Northern, Jalen Taminga, Tina De La Fay, and Chantel Vandergalen were just a few of the teachers that really helped make sure that this content was something that other teachers would be able to use and run with. So this next slide shows an example of the session 1 step-by-step rationale. I had one teacher that gave feedback that said she had started to create her lesson plans after downloading the content and then realized that all of it was already right there. And that's something that I definitely prided myself on in creating this content, was that teachers would have very little to do if they didn't want to. Of course, teachers can run with it on their own as well. Then we also have the scope and sequence, which has a breakdown of activities, the key concepts, those essential standards. All of the content meets English language standards for 7th grade. Then we also see differentiation for ELL students and for other learning ability students. So one of my favorite things about this content was creating the slideshows. And I am not a visual artist, so I also want to give a huge shout out to Luis Fernandez, who did an incredible job with the graphic design of these slides, making them look as sharp as they do. So these are some of the slides from session 1. It features our very own Fable the Poet and his poem, Don't Mind Me, which dives into his own journey with mental health. And some of the feedback, some of the discussion questions then allow students to reflect on the poem itself and the idea of what does normal mean, but also gives them the opportunity to talk about what's going on in their own lives, how they've been experiencing the pandemic and current events, and how their identities play into their mental health, and to also use sensory language, which touches on those poetic techniques as well. Another amazing thing about this content, to me, that was important to include was our incredible teaching artists. Every artist that you see up here today, we would not be the organization that we are without them, and this content would not be what it is without them either. I really wanted to have a presence in the classroom, to have our teaching artists be in the classroom, even though we couldn't be there in person. And so Gorilla was a filming company that really took these candid interviews with our teaching artists, with them responding to discussion questions and sharing their own experiences and journeys with mental health. Some more activities from that session of filling in the blanks. There are more videos. The writing prompts, I really wanted each session to have 3 to 4 writing prompts so that students could choose which one they related to most, whatever they were most inspired by. The goal is with this content, that students will write 5 rough drafts, take 2 of those drafts to the final draft stage, and then perform 1 or 2 of those poems at a final reading, whether that's virtual or in person or pre-recorded. So I really just wanted to have as much possible inspiration for students in each session so they could choose from any of those writing prompts. So that's kind of a nutshell of kind of what the content looks like. And now I just want to share with you some of the numbers that we've seen already of folks who have already downloaded the content, and this makes me so happy. I am so happy to see the content being used. The numbers are already higher than this now. We have over 50 downloads, but we are in 15 cities. We are in 4 states. Some teachers in Colorado have downloaded the content, some teachers in North Carolina, 17 schools, 4 mental health clinicians and organizations are using the content with their patients and clients. We see that there are 2 homeschooling parents that are using the content at home, and over 1,500 students are being taught the program. These next few slides show just some of the feedback we've been getting about the content as well, which also warms my heart. I'm so glad that people are using this content. I hope that it'll continue to be used and continue to be a resource and an outlet for young people to speak about what's going on in their lives, especially in this time where we're all isolated and seeking connection and seeking ways to express ourselves. That's really the goal of this. I have always felt that while our programming focuses on poetry and writing poems and helping students to refine their craft, that even more than that, it's about getting them to speak about what's going on in their lives and opening up to one another and realizing that their peers are going through some of the same things that they are. And that's what's really important to me. And so I'm so glad to see that that's happening in the classroom, even though the classrooms look different than they ever have before. So if any of this has sparked your interest or inspired you to possibly download the content, you can find it all on our website, www.thediatribe.org/program downloads. Just fill out this form, click submit, then click download, and you'll get an email with all of the content ready for you to use. I also just want to make sure we thank our sponsors that helped us create and deliver this program: Michigan Humanities, Meyer, the Grand Rapids Community Foundation, and the Heart of West Michigan United Way. And once again, I want to thank you all for being a part of this event today. It's been incredible to be in this space at Wealthy Theater. Thank you as well. Let's continue on with the program with none other than the incredible and amazing KFG.
Wow, full house tonight. That's the first lie of this program. Hi, everybody. I'm KFG, and it has been an absolute dream to be working with an organization as passionate and committed to societal change as the Diatribe. And I'm super excited to be here with all of you, hopefully cuddled up on your couch or wherever you are. This past year, I've been working on an environmental justice poetry program in partnership with the Lower Grand Rapids Organization of Watersheds. And during the pandemic, started piloting that program. It has been an amazing opportunity to teach young people how they are connected to their environment and how Black and brown people are disproportionately impacted by climate change. On top of this pilot that's been happening this year, I've been working on the Poetry Empowered program, talking to students about mental health, and it's really brought me back to my roots as an artist. Like a lot of other artists, I started writing to try to find the words for my mental illnesses when I didn't have words for it. I didn't know how to talk to the adults in my life. I wasn't in safe environments and able to do so. I was struggling with PTSD from abuse, dysphoria from gender questioning and sexuality, just a lot of struggles that I was going through. Right now, teaching this programming in the midst of a pandemic, when students' lives have been completely flipped upside down, I see just how necessary it is for the students to have these tools to be able to tell their stories. And so now I'll tell you a little bit more about my own story. My mental illness is a gift of a padong every birthday. See, with every awaiting year, another royal bronze coil is clipped into place onto green hickeyed neck, which cranes my head further and further into heavens, away from this caving chest. Every day is slipping into routine, sliding on another lead tree ring. Oh, I get old slow, like Saturn married to her sorrow. I gets heavy old. The poet's brain is a cage in its expansive ether. It is 3 pounds of galactic firing grounds, 3 pounds that weighs a ton. 3 pounds sharply wedges into every 3-pound interruption of a conversation. 3 pounds excuse from the room. 3 pounds of paranoia in the bathroom. 3-pound hunching shadow stairs. 3-pound breathing down the spine. 3-pound trauma monster. 3-pound doctor wanna quarantine, but no doctor could ever catch 3 pounds bigger than me. 3-pound magnet towards anticipating or draining moon. I mistakenly told the first therapist, space travel is my destiny. 3 pounds, not better. She halted my chatter about my sickness, said I shouldn't call myself crazy. 3 pounds, not helping. I never said that I was crazy. 3-pound eggshell magnetized to the blunt corner of the kitchen counter. 3-pound rationalizing thought. 3-pound thought, 3-pound thought, 3-pound number. 3-pound number of thoughts a day of taking a crack at. 3-pound number of cracks it would take to. I just want to see it. I just want to see it. I just want to see it. I just want to see the flesh of the wizard tyrannizing behind the scarlet curtain. I want to see it splayed out. I want to unfurl the maps. I want to unfold all the sticky layers of stacked invisible mazes. I want to show the dissection to my relatives, shove it in the noses of taboos and say, see, this is how 3 pounds can be too much to carry. When I was too young to tell, I'd watch the sunset over the hospital parking lot from the front porch of my home as my mother would tell me about God's right-hand angel who painted the blushing scene just for me. Yesterday, as I sat on my own front porch, I interrogated her over the phone about my cousin Chrissy, who committed suicide a little over 3 years before I was born. She asked why I was so obsessed with the swept history of Chrissy's quiet, then blasting use of the color red. 3 pounds oversharing, 3 pounds mom's worry, 3-pound drive to the mental facility, 3 pounds of roundabouts, 3 pounds got lost on the way, 3 pounds talked my way out, 3 pounds I'm trying, 3 pounds I swear to God I am trying, you have to believe me. I just wanted to see it. I just wanted it out here, small, tangible, squatted on the ground so I could stand over it and say, this is mine, not the other way around. Thank you.
Wow. KFG, everyone. Give it up one more time. And next up, I want you all to get super loud for none other than our very own executive director. Make some noise for Fable the Poet.
The world looks so different when the venues are empty besides a bunch of your friends screaming, but you know that people are tuning in online. That's really, really strange. So thank you all again for attending our free education program event. Working in all of these schools has really opened my eyes to how many young people connect to our stories in so many different ways. How many of us are trying to put on this facade of perfection, although we're all such complex and messy human beings. Some of our students are the ones that we talked about struggling with their mental health. Some of our students are on the honor roll. Some of our students are going to black colleges. Some of our students are the ones who are unfortunately picking up firearms. Some of our students are the ones who are struggling with out having homes. Some of them are ones that are blessed and have so many blessings coming in abundance and are privileged and have so few things to worry about. And I feel really honored to work with all of these teaching artists because they're all as complex and come from so many different backgrounds, just like all of the people that we serve. The piece that I'm going to read is a little bit about that. It is called Vision So Bad That. At 10 years old, I tried to hit a soda can that was 5 feet away with a BB gun. Started to realize I couldn't read the words Coca-Cola on it, pulled the trigger anyway, failing to make the connection. Realizing, A, I might need glasses, and B, if you can't see, you probably shouldn't be trying to shoot stuff. But what I did peg was this 2-inch wide oak by mistake. Following this experience was my first visit to the optometrist. Glasses have not always been as in as they are now. I, wielding a rat tail and high-top fade, was dreading this experience. The frames bestowed upon me were a decadent blend of what can only be described as an infusion of leopard print and tortoiseshell, an amalgamation of two creatures nature would never allow to make love. Why, you ask? Because that would make one hideous creature, one that now just make a home on my face. I arrived at school the next day a new boy. Students trumpeted upon my entrance, "Family matters in the building! Steve!" Laughter. A marching band that paraded behind me through the hallways. The ballad I heard most often, "Did I do that?" Over time, I learned to become one with the noise. Grab a sax and Coltrane my nature into They Say Boys Will Be Boys. Every year, my vision got worse. My lenses protruded more. Freshman geography class. Yo, your glasses are so thick. When you look at a map, you know the weather. Over here looking like it's about 72 degrees in Denver, huh, looking boy? At 17, I couldn't see the pellet in the bark anymore. That year in biology, I learned that a tree will continue to grow even with something foreign embedded in it. Glasses expanding each year, mimicking the ripples, flaunting a tree's telling of age. I want to ask that oak if toxic masculinity is a little like that extrinsic object it now nurtures as its own. How it ended up growing to protect something that at one time damaged it most. I still don't know if I'm the projectile or the tree in this metaphor, but I do know that I've had a mouthful of copper and seeds since I've learned how to bury them both, clench my fists along with my teeth and break them on the too tough to swallow. I mastered the art of deflecting everything. I didn't used to be a womanizer. I just wasn't ready to slow down. I'm not a player. I just wasn't built to be monogamous. What they don't know won't hurt. I mean, Pops ghosted and I was smooth. I don't like fighting. I just enjoy shutting people up, especially Nazis. Yo, my glasses are so thick, I can look forward and see the Lions win a Super Bowl. Turn them around, see Barack's inauguration, flip them back and see Michelle's. Funny how I got all this vision and it still took me years to see myself perpetuating the problem. My vision is so bad that for a long time, I couldn't see not all men is similar to all lives matter. Failed to acknowledge the damage that can cause. Failed to make the connection. Again, I now understand where I lie in this poem. That shrapnel is a seed, masculinity a metal. I was the Coke can once standing by watching the chaos, failing to realize when I became just another part of the problem. I appreciate you all. You are a far, far, far too kind. This next human being that is going to come up and bless you all is one of our teaching artists with the Diatribe. This human being is also going to be kicking off a monthly program that students from all over Kent County will be able to come, hang out, and write pieces and get us closer to what this after-school space that we envision will look like. This teaching artist has taught our Poetry Empowered program and is going to also be teaching our Writing to Right Wrongs program, which you will hear more about soon. Not only is this person a teaching artist with the Diatribe and an incredible multidisciplinary artist. But they are now also the poet laureate of the city of Grand Rapids, Michigan. Everybody make some noise for Kid Kane!
Peace and love. I've always been bad at this mic thing. No matter how many shows I host, I can never seem to handle this mic right. I'm so excited about being a part of such a beautiful organization. So happy to be here. I wish the seats were filled with people, but I am setting the intention for the universe to send your energy here onto this stage to all of us in your love. The beautiful part about self-expression and poetry is that we get to the heart of the matter. We get to tap into ourselves and find out what's important. And when we learn what's important to us, we can kind of look into the world and see what may be important to other people. When I was a kid, I learned about poetry at a poetry festival. And it literally changed my life because I stand here now as poet laureate. I got the opportunity to see people express themselves in a way that was so beautiful and that was so candid and personal. And so I am grateful for the opportunity to work with an organization that values me as an artist, me as a person, values my identity. And we get to also go into classrooms, whether that's in person or virtually, and tap into students to do the same thing. So I set beautiful intentions for what's in store for all of us as teaching artists for this beautiful organization. We will receive abundance. We will receive all that belongs to us. I have been setting the intention to be on stage, so I'm super happy to be here. But I also, while standing here, noticed that I've been performing it in my living room. So I'm gonna take my shoes off real quick so I can get grounded. That feels better. I'll take the opportunity to breathe and give myself the space to express. I have been alone so much during this pandemic, and so this is a beautiful opportunity for me to flex and express. This poem is called Classic Creativity, and it is a reflection of the love that I have for this art. I wrote classics. I wrote classics in classrooms when I was 10 years old. I got notebooks on notebooks of untold gold, a plethora of pages and writing utensils witness my life unfold. I chicken scratch my soul while eating ramen noodles and drinking ginger sodas. Back then, I knew my soul was older, no lie. I knew that I was timeless. I was not born. I will not die. I transcend the physical, multi-dimensional. When kid was just a kid, she was ahead of her time. Words ahead of the line, thinking of poems at the back of the line. Rewriting my life in my mind, so I had a moms like Claire Huxtable and a pops like Uncle Phil, living a life much more comfortable with less past due bills and more money to fill banks, less noodles and more steaks, less agitation and more vacations. I literally vacated the physical to live a life more traditional. These words raised me. These words saved me. These words gave me hugs when people were too busy to hug me, gave me love when people were too busy to love me. See, these words have been my best friend. From writing stories to reading dictionaries in my grandmother's den, we've been click tight. So each and every day of my life, every day that I write, I use this creativity to remind me of wholeness. Using each word to fill the holes within me, using each word to fill, using each word to feel real feelings for the realest. When I use these words, I use this creativity to calm my nerves. Then hop on stages like this and learn about them new nerves, them something's brewing in my stomach nerves. Oh, knees knocking nerves. I almost slurred my words, nerves. Then I use this confidence fueled by my passion for creativity to not forget these words. And then the words that I almost slurred just seem to calm my nerves. And I take flight. Yeah, I use this creativity to fly, to soar, carrier pigeon flow. Y'all know I use these words to send a message. Use this creativity to speak the truth. Use these words to open doors. It's a blessing how I use these words to teach life lessons. I use this creativity to spread love. Peace and love. Peace and love. Peace and love. I use this creativity to spread love, to spread peace from the depths of my soul into all the souls I can reach. I use this creativity to shine like the moon and the sun gave birth to me. I use these words to enlighten. I try to use these words in poems to make my life brighter, to make this life make sense, to give the world my 2 cents. See, I use this creativity to tighten my network. That's why I'm here. Said these words with so much conviction, my neck hurts, and if the words and my thoughts ever become things, I will use this creativity to manifest a higher net worth. See, I use these words when my soul hurts. I use this creativity to soul search. I found out that passion and purpose were my motives, so I owe this poem to words and to creativity, because without them, I would not be alive. I use them both to survive. Peace and love.
That was the one and only Kid Kane. Give it up one more time. Yes! And once again, it is my distinct pleasure to introduce this next human being. As you've heard a little bit about our past and present, Fable the Poet is going to come out here one more time to talk a little bit about our future and one project in particular that we have in the works. Give it up for Fable the Poet. Keep it going for Fable the Poet. The Poet.
It's amazing to have friends who will hype you up so that when the venue is not as full as you're used to it being, that it still sounds really hype. So now we begin to talk about the future. One of the things, as I look at this monitor on the side and look at the perspiration in my armpits, I hope the future has deodorant that works a little bit better than my deodorant. But what else is in the future, you ask? What else is in the future is Project 49507. The Project 49507 is going to be an organic placemaking initiative where we create anti-racist art that begins with a very key education component. We hope that this will actually grow into so many other points that we'll talk about in the future, but we hope to create art like Grand Rapids has never seen, and it might be art that West Michigan has never seen. So let's begin with phase one. What is phase one? The education component that I talked about. Writing to Right Wrongs. Writing to Right Wrongs is a program created in partnership with the Fair Housing Center of West Michigan. This year and moving forward, Foster, aka Autopilot, and Kid Kane, who you just heard, are going to be the ones that are going to be facilitating this program. This program teaches young people about gentrification. It teaches them about redlining. It also teaches them about systemic racism. Many of the young people that we work with are under the false impression that due to the choices of their grandparents or their great-grandparents or their uncles or cousins or whoever, that is why that their neighborhood is struggling, and they don't realize that that systemic racism is the reason that their neighborhoods are struggling. They don't realize that the 1930s lending maps that chose where funding went in many of our cities are the reasons that their neighborhoods are underfunded. And what this whole project, Project 49507, is going to begin with is this program right here. Now, I could talk all day about the program, but instead, I'll show you this video that will bring you inside the classroom so you can see what this program is all about yourself.
This program, we were able to get it off the ground just through an in-kind investment by the Fair Housing Center as well as the Diatribe. We were both committed to making this program a reality. The program involves a commitment by the Diatribe. They're the creative experts in the program. And then the Fair Housing Center, we commit staff time to it too, to just be there to support the Diatribe and the teachers.
I am going to call on a few people that have their signs finished. So just come up in the front and hold up your sign. And I want you to just like say what's on your sign.
I knew there was some problems with fair housing, because some of my family members deal with it, but I didn't know it was like such a big like problem here in our city.
And so each week they learn a little nugget of civil rights, of fair housing, and it's hard stuff. It's about the history of our country, and it's difficult, especially for people of color, to hear about how they've been discriminated against over the years. And then we ask the students to respond to that in different ways.
Next Friday.
My title for my poem is Home to Me. Home to me is a ticking time bomb that decides if you're going to hit success or hit your death. Home to me is not being able to walk down the street feeling safe. I remember watching the news thinking how life wasn't so bad. I remember the streets being safe.
Having the Diatribe, being able to facilitate that, but then also provide tools to express yourself, to be artistic about it, to allow your creativity to kind of get past some of the difficulty of it and then moving forward, I think really provides an opportunity to students that they otherwise wouldn't get with the traditional academic structure.
We can all say, yes, racism exists, but what are the examples of racism? Where does it really impact people's lives? And I feel like focusing on housing is a very good place to start.
Since I'm a different race here in this country, and I guess it's either based on race or their jobs, and I feel like that's what causes people to judge them and feel like they shouldn't be living in houses that are like for people who are actually privileged here.
Because I typically work with the clients on a day-to-day basis, and so I'm in the kind of the drudge of the day-to-day Fair Housing Act and working with housing providers and making sure that the laws are enforced. And so to see it play out into a classroom setting and to be able to share the stories of our clients with the students and to see how it connects with them once they kind of put a face to the discrimination.
Well, I think it's important for like other students to do this because, well, as you said, like we're kind of the younger generation, and I didn't know anything about this before. So I feel like if we spread more awareness on it, like the less and less it'll happen.
The last day of this program is normally accumulated with a day where all of the students in our program read the pieces that they have been working so hard to bring to life. Pieces where they talk about times their families have been discriminated against, times they experience being displaced from places that they normally called their homes. They talk about the reasons that they love their neighborhood, that they find themselves in it, the times where they feel uncomfortable in their neighborhood when people open up businesses and the owners are not a reflection of they themselves. The second to last day is going to be a little bit different, though. What we are going to be doing on the second to last day is we're going to be bringing in 6 of the city's most talented black and brown artists. What we are going to do is we are going to be asking these young people, if there was art in your neighborhood that could help combat gentrification, what would it look like? If there was art in your neighborhood that was anti-racist, what would it look like? If there was art in your neighborhood that made you feel strong, made you feel empowered, that helped you reclaim your neighborhood and preserve the diversity of your neighborhood, what would that art look like? These artists are then going to be taking notes of everything that these young people are saying and use these ingredients later in this process. Later in this process, like phase 2. Phase 2 is going to be community listening sessions. We have letters of support from the Garfield Park Neighborhood Association, support from Grand Rapids area black businesses, and the Hispanic Center of West Michigan. What we are going to be doing is working with these community partners to create conversations and listening sessions with indigenous black and brown neighbors in these areas. What we are going to be doing is asking them these same questions. If you were to have anti-racist art in your neighborhood, what would it look like? If you could create art that shined a light on the way that you feel your neighborhood has been forgotten about, what would that art look like? If you had art that made you feel stronger, more excited to take pictures in front of, and that also made you say, you know what, this neighborhood is ours, even if it feels like people are trying to push me out, what would that look like? Now, I know what you're asking. You're asking, well, why community listening sessions? You see, because so many art initiatives across America and in our own hometown are not rooted in community voice. Many times we say, oh, you know what, we want to do this art project, boom, here's some art. But even when doing this project, I ran into why community listening sessions are so important. You see, when I was vetting out locations and looking for buildings, I came across what I thought was the perfect building. After I then reached out to some neighbors and community members about this perfect building, they then responded with, absolutely not. That person is a colonizer. That person is a gentrifier. That person has caused a significant amount of harm to black and brown folks. Here I was, naive, just looking for the perfect space, failing to realize that I would have taken this anti-racist art project and gave a bunch of social capital to somebody that should have not received it because the community didn't even see them as their own. And you see, that is why community listening sessions are important. Which brings us to phase 3. Phase 3 is 3 different parts: implementation, community outreach, and neighborhood cleanup initiatives. You see, our city has some incredible organizations that I like to refer to as the boots on the ground. You see, not a lot of people in our city likes to fund these organizations because they see the boots on the ground as kind of being a nuisance. They stir up trouble. What I want to know is if we can give funds to these organizations to do neighborhood cleanups, some things that these organizations are already doing. Can we activate gig workers, people our city forgot about? I know we are a city who loves art, but when the pandemic came, in our venues, a lot of people's revenue stream were closed. A lot of us forgot about these artists. Can we activate these gig workers to help us do our community outreach? Can we canvass our neighborhood, especially in the Garfield Park neighborhood, and get every single home's email, phone number, and if they have any needs, can we take note of those needs? This is important because this will lead to something later. But most importantly, the implementation of this idea and bringing it to life. When we get that information, can we let all these residents know, yo, we're doing this art initiative, come and check out the art. We're doing this art initiative when these young people stand up to read these pieces that they've created in front of these murals. Will you come out and listen to them? But more importantly, when doing community connectivity work, can we do it organic and grassroots enough to where if Grandma Brenda needs a new roof, can we email everybody and say, hey, if everybody throws in $10, we can get this person a roof and make sure that they don't get displaced out of our neighborhoods to keep our neighborhoods as vibrant and beautiful as they are? That poses the question, can community outreach be organic? I absolutely believe it can. More importantly, can we use it to activate more neighborhoods and shift power dynamics in historically underserved areas? And again, I think we can. Phase 4, the unveiling. What we would like to do is bring out neighbors and community stakeholders to listen to our young people. As I said, these young people are talking about times their family members have been discriminated against. They're talking about the beauty and the joy that they find in their city. They're talking about everything from the good to the bad times. Can we send out an email to all this information that we collected and say, yo, come check out and listen to these dynamic young people and show them that people will show up if they use their voices to create? Can we activate areas with business owners and residents? Not only can we activate neighbors to solve issues, but can we activate neighbors to start financially investing in our businesses? Can we get the neighbors surrounding Burton Heights into the business districts and spend their dollars with once-a-month rallying calls? Can we do the same thing in the Eastern and Burton area? So you see, the important thing about the unveiling and about this project and what will give it soul is that we make sure that this art is not West Michigan nice. So many times we create art for the sake of vibrance. We don't create art as a rallying call to solve issues. More importantly, the art isn't always created by us. It's not created by the people who live in the neighborhoods. It's not created by people who are a reflection of the neighborhoods. And that is even more importantly what we are trying to bring to life with the 49507 project. As we want people to see themselves in art that challenges the status quo. So many people in our neighborhoods don't trust nonprofits. There's hundreds of millions of dollars invested in our neighborhoods, and so many people feel that they don't see it. Can we elevate what people want to see happen in their neighborhoods and have these murals be a beacon of that? Can we have the city work to make these murals obsolete? And every single year, can we continue to do this to get even more black and brown artists paid and make sure that even more people in our area are supported through an art initiative? When we dream of the future, what do we see? Let me tell you what I see. When we dream of the future, we see mental health services for creatives. This year, I've talked to a lot of different mental health providers, and they are willing to give their services to creatives. That's great and fantastic, but can we get funding streams to fund mental health providers to do this work? There are so many people like me who lived for years thinking that going to the bar and doing shows would get you mentally healthy. That's not true. Imagine how better equipped all of our creatives would be if they had mental health professionals that they could work with. What we want to do is pilot a program with maybe 20 or 30 of these creatives and see how their quality of life improves by launching initiatives like this. When we dream of the future, we see a gateway to higher education for those that will benefit from that resource. This year, I've started to talk to different people in different institutions in our city in higher ed. A lot of our city's most talented creatives didn't go to school for audio engineering. They didn't go to school for 2D or 3D art. Can we take some of our city's most dynamic, non-traditional artists, and can we get them in these institutions to get the knowledge they need? And by doing so, can we leverage these resources to create some of the most talented artists, not only in Michigan, but in the country? Can we hire former students to become teaching artists? You see, a lot of nonprofit organizations really lean into diversity and inclusion language and pay people and say, hey, look, we're paying more contractors, then leave it at that. The vision that I have for the Diatribe is that all these dynamic teaching artists that we have grow into administrative positions. And the people who then teach that content are the dynamic young people that we work with, the people who call this city home and intend on calling this city home for years to come. People who have gone through this program that know what it is to be a young person in our city. You see, those are the people that I can see doing this outreach and doing this work. Can we create professional development for independent artists? What I'm saying is that we have resources in our city to help artists get their taxes done. I know I was years behind on my taxes. I know Rachel Gleason was years behind on taxes. Can we get tax professionals making sure that our creatives are equipped so that they can do things like apply for these small business development dollars that our city is trying to be intentional and create? Can we get independent creatives the resources so that they can utilize these opportunities? Can we get them learning to budget? Can we get them identifying their target customers and using business development programs to further their career as creatives so that we are creating some of the best and highly equipped artists out of Michigan? Can we shoot for the literary stars? Can we create one of the best presses in Michigan? Can we create publications? Can we create submission opportunities for artists all over the country that then get them well paid, but also put them into our content that teachers across the country can teach? Can we start to create poetry murals that have artists' lines and students' lines in these work, can we expand across the country and employ even more diverse, dynamic, hungry creatives that actually care about their students and want to connect them to resources? And last but not least, can we manifest and speak into existence a physical space in our neighborhood? A place where we can continue to pour into our young people for years and years to come. A place that's filled with dynamic, diverse voices that our young people see themselves in. Can we do something that our city has never seen done? That is what I want to know. Last but not least, I wanted to thank the people who have made so much of this work possible. The Free Education Program was made possible by the Grand Rapids Community Foundation Youth Grant Committee. It was made possible by Heart of West Michigan United Way, Meyer, and Michigan Humanities. So far, we have received 2 out of the 5 confirmations we need to make the 49507 project possible and live and breathe and be something that rolls out over the next 2 years. One of those people that made that possible are the Fry Foundation. Another organization that made that possible is the Wegge Foundation. Hopefully, by the end of January, I'll hear confirmation from 3 more people, and then you'll start to see this project roll out, and you'll hopefully hear another marketing and promotion about that initiative. But also, this year, we filled out our first ever National Endowment of the Arts grant. If we get that on top of these 3 other commitments, we'll be able to roll this out larger than maybe any of us even saw. And I'm excited for that idea to come into a reality. That has been the 49507 project. Thank you all so much. You want to call the next person? Next up to the stage. You might know them as the Director of Education for our organization, but they are also an incredibly talented artist. One of the most talented artists, I'd probably say, in Michigan, for sure, in Grand Rapids. Everybody please put your hands together for Gleason!
Thank you again, Fable, for an incredible introduction. I do want to clarify, in case there is anyone that works for the IRS watching, I am caught up on my taxes now. But yes, that is something that I did fall behind on and is incredibly important to think about for creatives and gig workers. It's a struggle. But yeah, I wanted to share a little bit now. Earlier I spoke about creating the poetry-empowered mental health and wellness content. And as someone who has struggled with their mental health for a long time, I put a lot of myself into it, and there were moments where I was really struggling even while I was creating it, and it actually, there are moments where I was like, man, this feels like I need to practice what I preach. This feels hypocritical in a way. And then I heard a quote by Brandon Sanderson, who is an author, who said, sometimes hypocrites are just people who are in the process of changing. And that really inspired me. And when I was thinking about what I wanted to share today, I was thinking about my own journey with mental health. And so I want to share a poem that talks about riding my bike and how that's something that has really helped me with my mental health, moving my body, getting in touch with the earth around me and nature. So I'm going to share this poem, and I do want to give a trigger warning that it does mention suicide and suicidal ideation. But this poem is called Gun Lock. I'm using a gun lock as a bike lock, and I'm finding it ironic that I got it at a suicide prevention event that I was asked to perform at, and earlier that day, I'd fantasized about taking my own life. I thought of this as the man at the table explained that the cable was inserted through the barrel and came out the chamber so the gun locked and couldn't be loaded. I don't own a gun. And I don't think I'd ever be able to pull the trigger anyway, but sometimes when I'm falling asleep, my subconscious speaks, muttering, I shot myself, I killed myself, and these phrases repeat, unbidden by me, and this has always disturbed me, as though these are the words my soul will someday stutter to St. Peter or to whoever else I meet in the afterlife, like they will ask, what are you in for? Then that will be my answer, doomed to repeat it over and over. I shot myself, I killed myself, I don't own a gun. but I'm using a gun lock as a bike lock. And when I look down and see that bright yellow cube with the cable looped through as I'm cruising down Cherry Street Hill so fast without a helmet like I'm screaming toward a head injury, when I look down and see it, the shape is somehow comforting. I don't own a gun, but I'm using a gun lock as a bike lock. And when I ride, I don't know how to pedal leisurely, even up that steep medical mile on Michigan Avenue. I'm sweating and pumping and heaving myself upward like I'm hoping for a heart attack, like the endorphins will erase my memory, the awareness of my existence, and it's almost an out-of-body experience, as though my soul either can't keep up or can't bear the exertion and must linger behind me before falling back upon me as my heart rate finally slows. I don't own a gun, but I'm using a gun lock as a bike lock. And when I look down and see that bright yellow cube with the cable looped through as I'm racing around potholes and jostling down brick streets, I know it's still somehow saving me, reminding me that I have a hobby, that I have a body, and that my body is a blessing, that I can get through anything if I just focus on my breathing, that feeling too much of anything can still be a good thing, that the heart is a muscle that gets stronger with every letdown, that letdowns are just another way to help me get my footing, so the next time I take flight on my bike, I won't be thinking about falling, that every near fall is almost as thrilling as the rush of roulette, as the click of an empty chamber, because riding my bike as fast as I can is the closest I've ever felt to soaring, the closest I've ever felt to whatever God there might be, the closest I've ever felt to the earth, the embodiment of the laws of physics, that friction and momentum, the coursing flow of energy between the road and my body, between my body and the sky, between the sky and the rest of space. When that lock clicks into place, the feeling runs up my arm through nerves that click in my brain, locking the pistol that's tucked away in my imagination, and I know I'll be taking my bike out on the road again. When that lock clicks into place, I know I'm not ready for this ride to be over. Not yet, anyway. Thank you very much.
Y'all, can you make some more noise wherever you are at for Gleason? Make some more noise for Gleason. The next human being coming up to this microphone is so talented. Jocelyn has been teaching our poetry-empowered programming this year, but this human being also, end of last year, became our communications lead with our organization. Now, sometimes Jocelyn jokes around and is like, that means I just post on social media. First off, we have the dopest social media, especially Instagram, out of any organization that I've ever known. But second, this human being is the voice of our organization. If you receive a newsletter from us, Jocelyn crafted that. If you check out the Instagram story, Jocelyn crafted that. If you are reaching out to us to our info box, if you emailed us about this event, you are communicating with this human being. And not only are they an incredible communications lead, but they are also a truly dynamic artist and now one of the hosts of The Drunken Retort. Everybody, please put your hands together for Jocelyn Barr!
That was a lot of hype. Gosh, performing to a mostly empty room with just my buds feels right. This year's been a year of lessons. It's been a year of triumph through tribulation. I feel like the future is so ambiguous for all of us, right? We don't know what tomorrow's going to look like. But we know that today is important, and we know that survival is necessary. Self-care is a huge part in my survival. It's very close to me. It's how I learned how to love myself. And this poem is about that. Audre Lorde said, "Caring for myself is not self-indulgence, it is self-preservation, and that is an act of political warfare." This is my bubble bath gospel. No, honey, taking a bubble bath won't cure your depression. These suds aren't strong enough to erase the years of trauma you suffered under your mother's roof, the abuse by her boyfriend's hands, or the neglect that came after. It won't reverse the curse of PTSD or anxiety, nor will it make the sunshine feel any warmer, your friends any closer, your career any more successful, the climate any less screwed. But when you get out of the tub, at the very least, you might feel cleaner. Might feel more something than nothing. For 30 minutes in some scorching hot water, you'll unlock the secret of ancient, softer bodies and get closer to yourself again. Since you're all too familiar with self-medication, I'm thankful this one at least gets you out of bed. And while you know you won't find all of life's answers at the bottom of a conditioner bottle, at least it's not a bottle of another kind. When things get bad like this, you can use this magic to feel like you're taking matters into your own hands. And when you get out of the tub, put your hair up, and you can see yourself as yourself again. Thank you.
Everybody, please shower Jocelyn in some love. Shower Jocelyn in some love. Shoo. Y'all, this has been the Diatribe Free Education Program. You learned a little bit about the past of our organization. You learned a little bit about our now. You learned a little bit about the direction that we are heading in the future. And every time I look at that monitor, I see my wet armpits, and that is uncomfortable. I'm going to just put my hair over the front. Over the last year, we started receiving support for the first time from foundations. Before last year, we got everything out of the mud. Every single dollar that we were able to pour into this work, we got out of doing huge poetry festivals like the Grand Showcase, parties like our fundraiser party, the Masquerade Party. And this year, everything has changed and the world has looked so much bigger. We're able to create with actual bread instead of just the crumbs or the ends of the bread, you know? And last year, when we started to receive that support for the first time, we started to truly discover what our capacity was. There was one point last year where over a 12-month rolling period, we worked with 20 schools. At one point in particular, we were in 9 schools at once. A lot of people don't know this, but the way that our programming works is it starts with an assembly, and in these assemblies, we bring in some of the most talented performing artists from all over Michigan. This year, as we start to roll into virtual assemblies, we are going to, again, hire these performing artists to rock out and do living room sets so that kids can tune into this and see the power of performing arts. One wild thing that this year taught us is that we could be in so many places without physically having to be in those places. But we want you to see what we look like at full capacity. We want you to see what our organization looks like when we are really in action and thriving, and that is why we're going to close with this video. After you watch this video, there's a little soft ask. If you have capital to donate, then please do. But do not feel pressured to do so, as I understand that this pandemic has brought a lot of stress on so many people's lives. But again, we want you to see behind the curtain, and we want you to see what our work looks like. So we're going to end with this video. Thank you all for tuning in to the Free Education Program. We look forward to seeing you in the future. This programming was all made possible thanks to some really generous support. If you guys have ever heard of the Community Foundation, the Weggy Foundation, Fountain Street Church, Michigan Council for Arts and Cultural Affairs, they're the ones who made all of this programming free and possible. They're the ones who made it possible for us to work with you all for 6 weeks after that.
ain't never been comforting. A stranger to hugs. I can feel hate and resentment in my blood like the sugar that would rush through my veins from drinking Dean juice jugs.
Inside this man, let's all pray. Close your eyes, give me your hands. Everything will be okay, soon you understand. One day, it'll be okay, soon you understand.
It's that day time to empower the lives of all the melanated that don't know that we're divine. God, the power, the road right for
simply because I didn't really have my own voice. The household that I lived in was just full of abuse.
Me, at 13, when I decided for the first time that being pretty is what got me, assaulted me. At 15, when I came to the conclusion that food was the only constant in my life that made me feel good.
Let's all get loose and have some fun. How does that sound?
Parents are the best friends. Friends will come and leave. Parents will stay me forever. They protect me like lions protecting the cubs.
My body soaks in everyone else's opinion, but I decide to keep mine in because I'm frightened that all of my thoughts won't be too good to be talked about.
Love is when you just smile by the mention of their name. Why lie about loving someone? Why try to bring them down? Is it because you don't know or know how to love yourself? Why they're going over my head because something isn't quite right, and I'm moving hairs that aren't there, tripping over perfectly tied shoes, itching at the skin I've always been in because somehow it's no longer quite right.
Have you ever tried so hard to become someone you're not to not become who you really are? I'm trying to act like as if I'm in my comfort zone, as like a baby's in the womb come out as color. Because even though you're what I want, you're not what I'm needing. I don't know whether to cry or start screaming, or should I just stay silent? Quiet.
As I'm trapped in this cage, which only seems to be my coffin buried 6 feet under. I wish to be a ray of sun shining bright over a field of grass and flowers where children can run and play.
All I can hear is howling wind and trees clashing. Have you ever filled up a bucket of love and just dumped it out on one person? And then ricocheted off their body, as in it's protecting, like a shield protecting their emotions.
I said your name, and the nurse looked at me confused. I had to spell out your name for the nurse and say it is not an English name.
He always loved me. When he was a kid, he was always helpful. But he was also a troublemaker like me. I love my stepdad, and I wouldn't want to replace him, but I would really love to see my real father again.
My mom is like a ring tosser. She keeps missing her chances to redeem herself. With me and my sister and no matter how much she tosses him, her losses add up more.
Therefore, I won't get my heart broken when you become invisible. I want to be cold-hearted, so you can fall back to me like this.